by Riverside.
Hey everyone, welcome back to LeadHERShip Bytes, where we share inspiring stories and dive deep with current and emerging women leaders across different career stages, backgrounds, and industries. Today's guest is a true powerhouse in the world of marketing, digital strategy, and community building, Kiki L'Italien. She's the Executive Vice President of Marketing and Community Engagement at Big Red M, Editor-in-Chief of Association Chat, and a go-to voice for how associations can thrive in today's digital-first world. Kiki's work has been recognized by CVent, BizTech, Meetings Today, and more. She's a Hall of Famer for organizational leadership, a 2024 AWTC technology champion, and somehow she still finds time to contribute to councils at the American Society of Association Executives. She hosts a thriving podcast, and she's also co-founded an organization called Social Offset. I am absolutely thrilled to have her on the show today to talk about leadership, building thriving communities, and what it really takes to innovate in business. So let's get into it. Kiki, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, Cam. So excited to be here.
Yes, thank you. Now, Kiki, you had and continue to have a dynamic career, but if we hit rewind on it, where did it all start and what first drew you into marketing and digital strategy?
Well, it wasn't marketing and digital strategy that I thought that I was going to go into first. I loved writing and I knew that I enjoyed being able to communicate with people, whether it was through theater or whatever. I was always interested in communicating a message. And when I was in college, I had a wonderful business writing teacher who told me about a job opportunity in a marketing department. I never took marketing in college, anything like that. I didn't study it. But she saw in my business writing class that there was something there. And that is what got me into marketing, which I fell in love with because I saw the ways that you could combine psychology and messaging and be able to make things move, make things happen. And that's what got me kind of drawn into that marketing communications field.
Yeah, that's awesome. You've had so many roles, right? You're a podcast host, a community builder, you're an EVP. Speaking of marketing and the ability to move things and change and shift, what do you think has pushed you the most in terms of pushing the boundaries of your creativity?
Oh, I think that the thing that has really pushed me the most is having this idea of what is true and real and what is sort of the glossy facade, that veneer that we have in the world around us. There's always this little rebellious part of me that sees something that is like going to match everything else that's out there. And I think, do we really want to do that? Are we really stretching the boundaries? Are we really elevating the conversation or elevating the mood or bringing us up to the best that us humans could do? And I mean, that sounds really big, but I think underneath everything that's kind of always gnawing at me is we don't want to be on automatic pilot forever, right? And we want to just be sort of pressing the bounds. So maybe we haven't ever done it that way before, but why not? And that's kind of where that comes from, I think.
What do you think that thing is? Because you see it sometimes, I know I have in different organizations, it's almost this hesitation to break through the mold, and you have to be really courageous in leadership, but also an organizational sense to do that. So what do you think is the thing that's holding organizations and sometimes leaders back from being able to push the boundaries in that way?
It's a good question. And you spoke to the opposite of it, to have the opposite of fear is courage, right? And so to be courageous, you have to also acknowledge that there's something fearsome there. And especially today, we're talking at a time where it's very volatile, and we look in the world around us, and to rock the boat, so to speak, it is definitely, it can put jobs in peril. And I think everybody, especially right now, we're bracing ourselves and we're looking around and we're going, what is happening? And I think that it's fear. It's always fear. Sometimes maybe there's more of it than other times, but ultimately we're designed to want to do the safest thing and to avoid anything that's going to hurt us. That can be good for survival, but it's
Yeah.
really boring if you want to live your life that way, right? And it's never taking a chance on things being so much better. And
Yeah.
that's the part that we need to have the courage for.
Yeah, 100% agree. And, I think leaders like you who are at the center of, right, digital strategy and community building and marketing have a unique lens because you're not just working for one organization. You have the unique vantage point of seeing across multiple clients and have a window into what lots of people are doing and what they're facing. What shifts are you seeing right now in digital strategy, marketing and anywhere else that we should really be paying attention to?
I tell you, I'm seeing a huge shift in the way we communicate right now that is a combination of the way that we're integrating or figuring out how to work with AI and all of the amazing things that it can do for us. And we're also dealing with some of the horrific things that it can do, which is it makes it extremely easy for people to create things like deep fakes, and it makes it easier for scammers and spammers to get through. And so, this question of what is real, can I trust this? If you've followed me for very long at all, trust is one of my favorite topics in the world to explore. And I think that it puts this question about trust. Who can we trust? What messages can we trust? Really at the center of all of it. This is especially important for any of the associations that I work with, where their stock and trade, their currency is trust. And trust really breaks down to two things. It breaks down to a question of character and competence. Can I trust that competence? Can I trust that have the information or the resources, or you have even the staffing to do what you say you're going to do? And then character. Can I trust that your intentions are good? Can I trust what you say to me because you're not trying to do something else or something nefarious? Do you have my best interests in mind? Can I trust you with the information I give you? Data privacy, stuff like that. And so it's this balance of trust, really, and the way that we're sort of figuring out what our relationship is when we can't trust what we're seeing, hearing around our senses. And so it's a fascinating time to observe and kind of a scary time to be figuring this stuff out.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And speaking of trust, you have grown Association Chat, which is now a multi-platform brand. You've got a podcast, you've got a print magazine, you've got events. Like yes, I love that. There's so much. I'm fangirling Kiki right now, guys. But what has been the secret sauce for you, do you think, in terms of building that trust with your community and making the brand stick with people?
Well, one is being able to be fallible and make mistakes out loud, which is scary. When you make mistakes out loud in front of people and they stay with you, right? They see that you're real and that you're trying new things and that you're learning from them and always growing. That builds trust over time because, people get a sense of she's trying new things. She's going to break some stuff and it's not always going to work, but isn't it interesting to watch,
Yeah.
And then I think that another thing is that I really always push myself to be real and to commit to being as honest as I can be about what I'm learning and going through. And then also what I see that's happening around me. That isn't always easy, but ultimately I think people trust it because they know it's true,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And juggling so much. I mean, you have all of these things, but also you're a wife, you're a mom.
Mhm.
How do you do all of it without burning out? Like, what's the secret?
I don't do
Is
all
it
of it without burning out. I'm
Well,
getting
there's that
better.
real moment, right?
Yeah, yeah. I'm getting better. There are definitely times that I've broken down crying in the stairwell, or times when I think I can't do this. I don't know how to do everything. And to be honest, I put a lot of time and effort and energy into association chat, into the industry, to my family, my close family have tried to put more energy into my health, which I haven't always, but I don't know how you do it all. What goes to the wayside is I'm probably a terrible friend. That's probably an area that I feel if I could invest in that more, I would. But I feel like I have all this work and I have all of this stuff that I have to do. And I also really love my family. So the answer is I
Uh,
don't do it all. I have to choose what to let go of. And I
yeah.
let go of probably developing a lot of my friendships. And I've been trying to do a better job of working on some very specific friendships I have on purpose for the past few years. And that's been good.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you for that transparency. One of the things that I value most in leaders and in these conversations is when people are able to be introspective and honest about the journey. And that is both. So thank you so much for that. I am also very curious about your advice for women leaders around stepping into influence and finding their voice. You mentioned a little bit ago about how challenging this time is in terms of communication and what we can say. And it's just downright intimidating right now, even in terms of doing a podcast. Words have been weaponized in a different way now. And it's a challenging time for everyone. And so for women leaders in particular, I'm curious about your advice there.
I feel like I answer all of it with like, oh, that's a good question. You're right about everything that you said. It is a challenging time and there are a lot of ways to make missteps and there are a lot of ways to go wrong. And I think this idea of stepping into your influence and not being afraid of being visible is so important. What I try to go back to all the time is that ultimately you're going to answer to yourself, right? If you're being true to yourself, authentic to who you are, and you can have empathy and really feel for people. But if you're so worried about other people that it keeps you from behaving in life the way that you want to behave or that you should, then that I think ends up being their problem and not yours. You have to be able to, walk forward and say, I can hold my head up high because I'm doing what I feel is right. I just yesterday I made a decision and I have to do a more than a gut check. I have to do like a heart and sort of body wisdom check and say, okay, I know how this will look to other people, and I know what others would, how they would assess this decision. How do I feel about this? And I realized that I made a decision. I made a decision not to go to something that I
Mhm.
had said I would be at, and I felt really guilty, and I knew the people who would be there, but I thought, how do I really feel about who I'm
Yeah.
going to see there and what's going to happen there? And do I need to be there?
Yeah.
And the answer was no, you don't. And I was like, do I want to be there? No. Should I be there? And the answer was no. And you can let yourself off the hook a little bit because you cannot do all of the things. You can't be everything to everyone. You can't make everyone happy. And
Yeah.
so sometimes we have to be compassionate with ourselves.
Yeah, I love what you said earlier about associations and nonprofit organizations, currency being trust.
Yeah.
Oh, that's That's big. That needs to probably be on a shirt somewhere or something, right? I'm curious what trusted leadership looks like to you, especially when you're talking about building community in digital spaces because of all the things that we're facing right now where trust is being challenged.
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that actually, because probably the least interesting thing I can share, but is I think really important, that is maybe undervalued, is because it's in a digital space, constantly letting people know that you're taking care of their data, or that you are being honorable with how you're handling their private information, is
Yeah.
something that I only see a little bit of, but I think will become more important as we begin to really appreciate how much our privacy has been infiltrated. And it's getting to the point now where we're starting to see our data being used against us more and more. And so
Yeah.
it's going from, I mentioned going camping and I'm seeing camping gear pop up on my web browser, to like, what are they doing with my data? Where is that
Mhm.
going? So I think that one of the things is just somehow demonstrate and communicate regularly that
Mhm.
you are aware of and taking care of the data that you're responsible for. The other thing when it comes to leadership is, it used to be that when you were communicating about different issues, it's like, well, you don't want to over communicate. You want to communicate what is important. I disagree with that now. I think that now we have to over communicate, because um, it's that lack of communication where people are able to create stories inside of those spaces, right? Whenever
Yeah.
you see, you know, well, I heard this, I heard that, and this distrust and mistrust of how someone makes a decision happens, it's usually because there hasn't been enough communication that's been put forth. If somebody's communicating with you regularly and making it clear what's going into their decision making, you don't have to do any sort of mental gymnastics. You can trust in
Yeah.
what they're doing. And the
Yeah.
more that you can help cultivate that trust, the better.
Yeah, thank you for that. Really good advice there. I'm also going to lean in a little bit to leadership a little more. What would you say your leadership philosophy is?
It's a really good question, Cam. I would say my leadership philosophy is to lead with curiosity. Because I think that when we assume we have the answers, we can make some of our biggest mistakes. And so I think that really trying to cultivate curiosity on purpose on a
Yeah.
regular basis, it's a muscle too, right? And so constantly being curious, I tell my daughter, she's 17, and I tell her all the time, give people room to grow, give people room to change.
Love
And
that.
and it's not to say, if somebody is doing something dangerous, that you just sort of wait for them to change, but give them room so that essentially, if they do change, that it allows for that. Be watching for that evidence, because it's like, you don't know, things don't always stay static. And the other thing is, be curious, because there are a lot of different things to study that can impact the way that you see the world and that you approach problems. If you stay curious, then you're able to constantly learn, and that feeds into the way that you solve problems, that you identify opportunities, and it allows you to have a little bit more delight in your life. That can feed all kinds of things.
I was just talking with someone today about that. We were talking about surveying
Mm.
and how it seems like such a simple tool, but it winds up challenging our assumptions sometimes in the best ways. So thank you for that. And I'm going to pivot a little bit and ask you about social offset. I am
Ooh,
very intrigued by the idea of this organization and what it is, what it stands for, and how it came into being. Can you tell us a little bit about the origin story and the impact that it's making?
Absolutely. So Elena Gerstmann, I love this origin story because it really all started with a situation where she was stuck in an airport. And the idea started with Elena and then a conversation she had with her wife and Beth Surma. And Elena was in an airport. It was the middle of the night, and everything except for one place to order food was open, and she was starving. She had been traveling and she was stuck there. But this particular place that was still open was a place that did not support the values that she does and was actually doing a lot of lobbying against LGBTQ plus rights, you know. So she, as
Yeah.
a rule, did not frequent that place, but she was starving. And so she began calculating, trying to figure out, well, how much would I have to donate to a good cause to offset if I bought this sandwich? Like if I
Hmm.
buy this sandwich, it's investing in whatever efforts they're putting into this. But how much would I have to donate in this other direction to support my values? So she ended up talking about this with her wife, and they were like, you know, that's a really good idea. And then after the pandemic, a lot of meetings were coming back, people were coming back together.
Hmm.
And there was an important meeting, industry meeting that was coming together in Tennessee. And there were a lot of people who were concerned because of some of the legislation that was going through that had to do with women's rights and stuff like that. And we were concerned. But there was also this need, this drive to continue to meet, to continue to get together. So the idea came about, how do we offset the tax dollars that's going to be spent? Because research went into whenever you hold a meeting in a
Hmm.
space, there's so much that goes into the local economy. There's so much that goes into the staff for that local economy. And we don't want
Yeah.
to hurt small business owners. We don't want to hurt the service staff. We don't want to hurt the people in hospitality. So, what can you do? You know, boycotting a place wouldn't hurt who you're trying to hurt, right? It wouldn't hurt the laws that have been passed. It would only hurt the people that you're trying to protect. How do we continue to get together and yet be able to support our values? That was where all of that came from. I think it was Aaron Fuller came up with the calculation of, if you spend this many nights and you go to this many restaurants, how many tax dollars would end up going to the government for that. And so it was like, well, let's take that amount. Then you have the option. Do you want to donate to a vetted charity that is going to be in that in that state, that is helping support the fight against legislation that could be harmful? And we have a number of causes that we really look at, which has to do with racial disparity, taking care of you know, LGBTQ plus rights, those who are homeless and
Hmm.
who are, you know, navigating those difficult times. But it was probably such a blessing, I think, that I was able to get involved with this group, and the founding board members who came together were all still, you know, supporting it and wanting to stay involved. So that's kind of the social offset story.
That's wonderful. And where can people get more information about that?
Yeah, socialoffset.org. It has everything you can do, that you need to learn about it. You can actually sign up to have your own campaign if you know that you're going to be in an area. We try to make it as cost effective as possible, with only amount of money that comes in goes directly to the expenses for keeping the website going, building the web,
Yeah.
like it's just going to that. No one on the board or anything is paid to, you know, it's not something that just sounds good or looks good.
Yeah, what a wonderful idea. And it's exciting to hear the implementation of that. I love to hear stories about people just doing good in the world, right? It gives us hope. And I think hope is the thing that is most important in challenging times. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And Kiki, outside of all of this incredible work that you're doing, what keeps you inspired and motivated? Do you have any rituals or creative outlets that sort of keep your spark alive?
Yeah, I do. I do. Okay, so let's talk about it. So I used to be afraid of being thought of, and this is where you're worried about other people, right? As too superficial to admit to what I'm about to tell you. But the
Okay.
truth is that I love beauty. I love beautiful things. I love like my wallpaper, like
Yeah.
whatever it is. And so I realized somewhere along the way that when I give myself a chance to appreciate that, and whether it's going out into nature or going to an art gallery, I'm really drawn to that and it feeds my soul. And I truly believe that from the beginning of time, when we go all of the way back, and we see some of the earliest pieces of jewelry, or we see some of the earliest, oh God, constructions,
Yeah.
it's not just to show, political power. Some of these were crafted to inspire. Some of these were
Yeah.
crafted to say, we are human. Look at what we're capable of. Look at what beauty we can manifest in the world. And so, I think it's sort of the opposite of superficial. I really love beauty and I love
Mhm.
to seek that out in the world around me. And it can be the strangest little thing that nobody else would think is beautiful, but it's like
Yeah.
looking for that beauty in the everyday is really one of my favorite things to do. And I think that that keeps the spark alive and it keeps me inspired. And it also kind of drives me crazy because I think like how can I make that happen more in the world through what I do, you know?
Yeah. Well, you do a pretty good job as someone who follows the work that you do with Association Chat. I'm familiar with your work through Big Red M, through the association community as well. You do a lot, and it is inspirational. So I hope that seed lands in your heart and in your spirit to know that you are inspiring people and you are making a difference in so many ways, though some that you can see and some that you can't, for sure.
Oh,
For
thank you
sure.
for that. Thank you for
Yeah.
that, Cam. My
Yeah.
gosh. Oh,
Yeah. It's very, very true. And speaking of that, you are a person who has done and is doing so much. I'm curious if there's something that you are still excited to try next or learn next. And if so, what is that thing?
yeah. Well, there's a lot. I feel like I couldn't live enough years. I always joke about having a robot body because I want to be able to live for so long. I'm so curious to see
Yeah.
how things go.
Yeah.
I guess the thing that is in my immediate future that's coming is a trip to Italy. My daughter, who I just absolutely adore, but she just insists on continuing to get older and do things, and I don't know. But she's going to spend her first semester of her senior year in Italy. And I've never been to Italy.
Yeah.
And I've wanted to go, but I've never been there. And so I guess, learning about Italy, I really get into learning about the places that I go. And I've been really enjoying studying and everything from looking at the language to the mythology of the land to like exploring like what are the possible things that my husband and I can do when we get ready to go over. Because, of course, at the end of her semester is when we can go over and we're going to do like this sort of tour of Italy and then pick her up and do a little bit before we head back. But I'm
Yeah.
I'm already planning this and it's not until January, but I'm just like, what are we going to do? Where are we going to go? And what are the different regions like? So that's one of my
Yeah.
favorite things to do and study right now is really getting
Yeah.
into that. And
Yeah.
I guess one of the things that people would probably be maybe surprised about is on that beauty side of things. I've been through a friend of mine that's a neighbor, 84-year-old woman who is just who I want to be when I'm 84 years old. She showed me a little bit about some of the pathways in this little town that we live in and taught me about native plants and pollinators and all of this sort of thing. So I've really been getting into Doug Tallamy's work and like studying up about native pollinators and like how to build that in so that you can create more of that in your neighborhood and encourage that. And society we live in. So yeah, so that's been kind of
Yeah.
a fun thing to get into too.
I love that. And I am going to ask you one final question.
Mhm.
Well, actually, no, there's two. There's one fun one that I always like to stick in there at the end.
I like it.
There at
I
the
like
end.
it. I do this too, right? I am always like,
Yeah.
there's one more. No, maybe two. Okay, now one
Yeah.
more. No.
Yeah. So we've got, a lot of leaders and community builders who are listening. I think I'll ask you first if there is one piece of advice that you could seed into their hearts to take with them on their leadership journey, what would that be?
Oh, remember, it's not about you. It's about creating connection. And that's a lot easier said than done. But when we're posting these like conversation prompts and things like that, we have to figure out the easiest way to make people feel comfortable with sharing. And
Yeah.
how can we make people feel comfortable with sharing? Like,
Yeah.
and so work this into your chat GPT or your Claude AI. If you're trying to develop content community builders that you're going to be posting, I always talk about low risk vulnerability. And I say, I'm trying to ask questions that will provoke a response that allows them to share something, but I want it to be low risk vulnerability. And
Yeah.
what that means in my world is they can share this without worrying that whatever it is that they share, it will demonstrate or illustrate something that is a positive attribute about them or their character without something that will be detrimental to a potential employer. Like, I want it to be something that encourages people to share without asking them to share something that will lead them down the path to saying something that could get them into trouble. So I want low risk vulnerability for those people that you're trying to connect.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great advice. And now the fun
I
question.
like it. I like
Uh,
it.
if you could describe your leadership style as an animal, what animal what animal would it be
Oh
and
my
why?
gosh. My leadership style as an animal. You know what? It would be a jaguar.
Ooh,
My
I-
sister gave me this
it's beautiful.
ring. We have a matching ring.
Uh-huh.
Tender Scott if you want one. No, but it is. But she got me this jaguar ring and we both wear it, me and my sister. And it'd be a jaguar. Why? Because it's sleek and it
Yeah.
is, beautiful and
Yeah.
it is fierce
Yeah.
and bold. Yeah, there you go.
I love that. That is
Yeah.
that is a good that is so good. Oh my goodness. Well, Kiki, this has been great. This has been such a fun, I think, an insightful conversation. And I really thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here and also for all the light that you bring into the association world, into really every space that you're in. You show up for people and for organizations a lot. And I've said this before, but I want to say it again that it's very impactful. And for me, as someone who is relatively new to podcasting, and I look to people like you for inspiration. And I thank you very much for the work that you're doing. And for folks who want to follow your
Mm.
work with Association Chat, you've given us the website address for Social Offset, but Association Chat, where can people find more information about that?
Associationchat.com, spelled out, all one word, associationchat.com. Go there. If you scroll down, you can subscribe to the magazine, the digital and the print, friends. The print is
Yeah.
free. It's free.
Wow.
So, quarterly print magazine, go and sign up for that. And if you're listening to it, go and sign up for it. You're going to really love it, I think. And also, if you scroll down a little bit below that, you'll be able to see all of the things, all of the links, that whether you want to find the Facebook group, a LinkedIn group, you want to sign up for the
Mhm.
newsletter, you want to sign up for the podcast, what have you, it's all there. So go to associationchat.com.
Yeah, and join the community. For those of you who are working in associations and nonprofit organizations, I promise you won't be disappointed. It is a great community that Kiki has built, and people really connect with each other there. It's a great place to get advice and to learn and to grow. And I enjoy it very much myself. Thank you again, Kiki, and listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in to Leadership Bites. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. And if you're loving the content, leave us a review. And until next time, we'll see you. Have a great day. Thank you.